Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. This is season 2, which is all about hiring, and we are joined here by Annelle Barnett.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We love having you here. Today, we're going to talk about the gig economy. So, Annelle, you're in recruiting.
I am.
Tell me a little bit about the gig economy and how that's factoring into what you're doing.
Yeah, so the gig economy is, for people who don't know, it's essentially freelancers. And we like to put a name on them. So it's kind of the practice of using freelancers regularly in your day-to-day work is called the gig economy, basically. So from my perspective, it's definitely a growing trend. It's definitely only going to become greater. I think it's estimated that around 15% of the workforce today is are freelancers or self-employed workers, and that's going to continue to grow as time goes on with changes to healthcare policies and things like that people used to rely on with full-time positions.
Yeah, definitely. I could see a lot of impact there. And I guess just to bring it home for the listeners and viewers around the gig economy, I mean, a lot of these things also are, examples of that are like Uber drivers.
Right.
If you're getting employees on Upwork, like a freelancer website where they're doing something tactical. What are some other common names like Uber that, you are using the gig economy to their benefit? Can you think of any?
I mean, I think
other than Lyft, obviously.
Right. Well, Lyft is. No, I think it's being worked into, the professional workforce a lot more than it ever has been in the past. And companies are realizing that they don't need full-time people to do part-time projects, basically. So they can bring people in to specialize in the areas that the things that they're trying to accomplish. For instance, someone might be a videographer, and a company doesn't need a full-time videographer. But
and you only bring them in to shoot and record a podcast.
Correct. Similar to the one that we're recording right now. So
that's a good gig, working with us.
It is. It's awesome. A great gig. Yeah. And then you have the individual side of it, and the fact that they can, the freelancer or the consultant or the contractor can work whenever they want. They can work however often they want. They can work from wherever they want. So, in some cases they could live on the other side of the world and still have, a well-paying gig that keeps them employed and keeps income coming in and not have to go into the same office every single day.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've used freelancers in all kinds of ways. And the thing I love about it is it really gives you a way to scale and to overcome very specific challenges. So like nowadays, you used to think maybe, and maybe even I used to think, if I needed to solve a problem, if something wasn't working right in my business, I would have to have enough money to hire a full-time person for that role. Yeah. And now what we're able to do is we're able to say, well, maybe we're not doing as good as we could in operations. Right. But in this department, we don't need a full-time operations manager, right? That's going to cost us a fortune. So we can go out and we can find a freelancer to work, maybe a quarter of the week, 10 hours a week, consistent work, maybe pay them a little extra for that. We're saving money and we can scale up. So, we can scale them to 20 hours. Or a lot of times we can scale them to 30 hours or add 2 different people with different, benefits to them, different strengths in order to bridge that gap until one day we need this full-time resource that takes care of those. So I found that for scaling up, it really helps in a business sense and probably works in any different department.
Right. It's more of a fractional workforce rather than all full-time people. And frankly, you're probably getting the best of that individual for the hours that they're there because they aren't required to be there 40 hours a week,
right.
And they have a job to get done. And so if they aren't getting that job done, then you're probably going to move on to another person that that is it's a lot easier to shift to a new person than it is if that person is a full-time employee.
Yeah, definitely. I know for this podcast, we use a transcriptionist, and I believe she's in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
And so, we just send them over. We get them back in like 48 hours. They're transcribed, look great,
right,
and well executed, because that's what they specialize in. That's what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also great to test and validate proofs of concept and things like that, where you can hire somebody on a project basis that can tell you whether this is something that you want to move forward with on more of a full-time basis if it works out, or if it doesn't work out, then you haven't made that investment in time and resources and interview processes and things like that. So
yeah, I think that's a great way to utilize, because you also utilize these freelancers because you also get the benefit of them being a knowledge expert. I know when we go out and look for things, we don't say, I want somebody who's good in marketing. I'm like, I want somebody who's good at X.
Right.
I want the best person in social media strategy, and I'm going to pay them for a period of time to give me the strategy document that says, what should we do, where, on what platform, based on who our target audience is. And they're good at the analytics side and figuring that out. Whereas the person who executes that strategy is totally different, personality.
Right.
And maybe we need more time from them because they're doing a lot of the ongoing work. So we get the best of everybody because they specialize, or some of them specialize.
Right, for sure. And then they're also good for interim gaps. For instance, if somebody's on maternity leave, someone on your full-time team is on maternity leave, or perhaps someone in their family is ill or sick and they need to care for them, then it allows you to bring somebody in on temporary basis to I often call them seat warmers.
Right.
Keep the seat warm while that person is
keep
away.
Keep things going. Keep the wheels
right,
running. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And
wheels spinning.
And they're not going to know everything about your company's processes, but they can at least manage the project and keep things going while someone's away, and then know how and when to ask the questions and raise red flags, and so that everybody continues working on the thing that they were working on before the leave.
So what kind of challenges do you think companies are having in integrating and including freelancers and people that are part of the gig economy into their environment? What are the challenges there?
I think it's really important for companies to assign someone to be responsible for those individuals and to make sure that they're getting the work out of them that they're supposed to. Because, often these people are not sitting on site. They aren't working from your office. And so they could go off on a path that is totally different than you wanted them to go off on. And often you still have to pay them,
right.
Especially if they're an hourly employee or an hourly contractor, then you're still going to have to pay them, even though they've gone in a totally different direction than you originally intended. And that's often not their fault. They weren't given defined guidelines and
right.
And objectives of a project. And then another good way is to make sure that they're included in the meetings that are relevant to them. And a weekly check-in at minimum is good practice to understand where they are in the project, and also help them with anything that they might need from the organization. And it just, like total communication. So you can't just let them operate in a vacuum
right.
just because they aren't on site.
Yeah, and I think that even rolls over to full-time employees that are remote, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of management in there, and then there's the need to make sure that anybody that's remote is being engaged in the way that they need to be engaged, and
right.
keep them moving in the right direction. I know we have an international team, and we have a daily scrum every morning. So
right.
everybody's on there, they're sharing their video, we're doing updates, we're making sure we're on track, we're doing, anytime we need to talk, we pop on. We use Google Hangouts, so we do
right.
a video and do updates. I just did an update the other day with the team that says, the strategy was this, this, and here's how it's pivoting, here's why it's pivoting, so that everybody can align and know which direction we're going.
Right.
But everybody had to be on that meeting.
Yeah, and that's really good practice. Daily scrums and stand-up meetings are great for keeping those people integrated and engaged for sure. And then using, screen recording types of tools to make sure that they have processes and things and can follow those. I actually have someone in the Philippines doing work for me, and that's often how we'll communicate. We communicate a lot over email, but when I need something specific done, then I do a screen capture of it and send that to her so that she understands specifically what I'm asking for.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good way to go. I know I just recorded 2 videos yesterday where anything that I learn or uncover, like if I'm working on something that I think the team needs to know about, I'll go ahead and just record it and add it to our training folder and email that out to everybody and say, hey, I just did a 10-minute recording on this. You should go check it out. I think it's going to help. Because sometimes I'll do the research and R&D and uncover certain items.
Right.
And then, there's a better process now.
Yeah.
So I'm able to update those in a video format instead of like having to sit there and build a document and hope it comes across correctly and all of that. I can just record my screen, record a little bit of audio, and it's out the door. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's the gig economy is great for the individuals. It's they have a lot of freedom. They can work from anywhere. They like to work on different projects, so it's not the same repetitive thing every day. They, a lot of companies don't offer solid healthcare benefits programs anymore. So that's why a lot of people wanted full-time jobs in the past. So since that's not available in a lot of cases these days, that's not something that holds these individuals back. So the downside of it is they have to go out and find their projects. So they have to be good at selling and be good at getting in front of people and managing their time and making sure that the projects that they have committed to are done and done well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know it's a lot of extra effort to make sure that all of those items are being managed with those remote people.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you are looking at using the gig economy or any type of freelance work, we hope this was helpful and gave you some items that you could think about on how to manage those freelance employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.